Hello guys, welcome to Tech and Tech. In today's video, we're going to talk about another weapon that is used a lot in modern combat, which will be the grenade. Now, the grenade is used, of course, for taking out enemies behind cover or taking out enemies who you are behind cover, they are behind cover, you both are behind cover. The grenade works anywhere where a gun doesn't. So you don't have to expose yourself to enemy fire, you don't have to get out of cover. You don't have to think about whether your gun can penetrate the wall or anything that the enemy might be taking cover behind. The grenade is, of course, always an easy answer whenever you face such situations. Like you are behind cover, you just if you have any idea of where the enemy is, you can throw your grenade over a trench or whatever you are in, taking cover. And well, if an enemy is behind the wall and you're not, like you can see him, you know he's behind somewhere, you just pop the grenade and then you throw it against the enemy, and well, it usually takes them out using the fragments that it shoots. Like these small pieces, they turn into fragments when the explosion pushes it outwards. It just makes these things break, and then it forms fragments which are lethal, and when they strike the enemy, they will kill them usually. Now, this grenade can be used for many other purposes, such as setting traps. Like there was a trap I like to be like, it's very convenient. You just have a grenade, you attach a string to it, you put it like behind any kind of door or anything the enemy might open towards it, where it triggers it by like pushing the string backwards, which pulls the pin on the grenade, causing the grenade to activate and well go off after a few seconds of delay. Well, it's just one of the many uses the grenade has. Now, this grenade, exactly how this grenade was formed, is what we're going to talk about today. Now, the grenade, like many other weapons we use today, like the combat knife, has a very long history. Now, the idea of having the convenience of throwing incendiary or explosive material at the enemy has been here for as long as people learn to throw things, such as, well, let's say in the old times they used these pots. They used to fill them with oil or any flammable, or they didn't have explosives when these pots were used, but if they had, I'm pretty sure they would use it. They would just fill it with explosives or incendiary materials, and then they would use catapults or anything that could throw them. Like you could make them smaller ones, and then they would fit in your hand. You just had to find a way to light it on fire so that once it breaks, the fire makes contact with the material. It makes it either explode or become flammable. Well, the best case of this being used were in catapults, where they used to have these big vases filled with flammable substances, and then they would light these up using torches, and then they would launch it using their catapults over a long distance, and when it hit the ground, hit anything that's on its way, it would shatter, causing the flammable substance to expand and making contact with the fire they had turned on with the torch, and well, this would cause it to form a fire, and then it would fall on the enemy. This was used to great effect because of the fact that it could burn tons of enemies. It could make them not want to fight, and it also had a great impact on morale, besides burning and incapacitating enemies. And well, of course, it also, besides that, it had a great impact on morale, because like you're, let's say, fighting in the, like, let's say, what should we say, in the 7th century, and then you just see your mates or your teammates or well, whoever is next to you suddenly catches on fire and starts running, like the way you would start running when you when you get caught on fire. And then like the thing that you would think of, like, no, I ain't doing that, it's too dangerous. Now, well, this also had the same effect when it was used in warfare back then. The fact that their teammates would catch fire would cause a great decrease in their morale. In fact, this was a kind of more of a morale decreasing weapon rather than a lethal weapon, because lethality, it could take out only a few people that were in the range of whatever was being thrown, and like they had to like watch the thing being thrown on them in order for it to actually affect them. they had to sit, like look at the vase that's coming towards them, and then they had to not run away for it to make them catch a fire. And well, the more impact it had was on morale, but that's not the case. Later on, we took these vases and we made them smaller so that they can fit in your hand and you can use them against an enemy that's close and like whenever it's needed. Like catapults, you had to do this when your friendly troops were on this side and the enemy was on that side so that you don't risk friendly fire. But with this, you could use it when your friendlies are in front because you know the fire is not going to be that big and you're more accurate than a catapult. And the fact that the enemy has less time to show a reaction to your grenade or whatever you're drawing. Like a catapults have long range and they must be used from a long range. So you just have to like they have a lot of time to react when the thing is being shot. But in your hand, when like we are fighting, I push you with my sword and I suddenly pull out my grenade, like light it up in some way, any way, and then just throw it towards you. You have a little to no time to show any reaction, like dodge it or deflected. Like you have none of that time. And also, these pots used to be of great use in defending castles and walls where the enemies would usually pile up in front of doors. They would they would like empty these oils and flammable substances on top of the fighters that would come in front of the walls of the castle, and then they would light it up in order to like light the enemies on fire. This had, of course, this one had more of an effect than the one being launched with a catapult because like you were the one who was seeing the enemy, knew if they were piled up right in front of where you're going to throw those flammable substances, and well, you knew when to light it up using, well, usually they used flammable substances attached to an arrow. They would light it up and they would shoot the arrow where the oil or flammable substance was poured on the enemy, and then this would cause it to catch fire, and well, the enemies would catch fire too. And this was used to great effect in defending medieval castles and even before that time. And well, later on, we evolved and found gunpowder, and then we decided that we shall remove the oil and the flammable substances inside of these vases with gunpowder so it actually explodes. And then we discovered that when it explodes, it causes the vase to shatter and it forms deadly fragments that are actually more deadly than the explosion. Like the explosion itself doesn't have that much lethal force, just shoots you back. But the fragments are the key to killing your enemy using these grenades because the fragments are like the small bullets that will be sent out due to the shock of the explosion towards your enemy. It's a great misconception to think that the reason a grenade kills an enemy is because of the uh, explosives, but it's not. It's usually because of the fragments. Now, of course, there were grenades that would not use the shrapnel as their main weapon. They would use the explosives, but they weren't very common, and most armies usually use the ones that work with fragments. Now, of course, these vases later on they later on inspired the Molotov cocktail that, well, we see on the battlefield today being used as, well, an improvised grenade. It's just basically oil or flammable or explosive substances, and then it's a piece of cloth, and then you light it up, and then once you throw it, it either like the fire from the cloth either reaches it, which it usually doesn't. It usually cause when you throw the thing, it shatters, causing the oil and the flammable substances inside to uh, go on a massive area, and then the flame that's on the cloth would make contact with the oil or anything that you put inside the Molotov, and then it would catch on fire. That's why it's, well, flammable. Like it's used to usually block passages that the enemy might use to come to you, like in front of doors or many other locations. In fact, you can make some great traps if you know what you're doing. Like remember the same trap I told you, a string, and then you just have some kind of a mechanism of like a mini catapult. You put the Molotov over here, you attach the string, then once the enemy cuts the string, the uh, and like the energy is stored in a catapult causes the Molotov to get launched towards your enemy, and well, it either blocks their passage or if, well, in most cases the enemy just opens the door and then comes in, which in that case it will make them it will set them aflame. and in fact can be used in many ways. And then like this idea of having a thing shatter and form fragments due to an explosion evolved, and became the grenade that we know and many armies use today. Anyway, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the war bell to be notified of the rest of the wars that will occur on the channel later. Thank you for watching again, and stand by for my next video.